What's good, ladies and gents? Welcome to the MKO Pugilism Boxing channel where we talk all things box. Remember to like, subscribe, hit the bell notification, put that bell on all so you can get notified straight away as soon as we drop new content on this channel. So without further ado, let's get into this one. So coming up, what is it, in just, I want to say 2 months time, 2.5 months I guess from now, we're gonna actually have this fight that was spoken about, and that is Errol Spence Jr. versus Manny Pacquiao, the Filipino senator, the 8-weight world champion, the now 42-year-old 8-weight world champion. I think he actually still has a belt that he won from Keith Thurman back 2 years ago when he fought. So yeah, we've got this fight, and it's going to be something to. It's going to be a spectacle, I think, this fight, because you've got one guy who is coming off of a terrible car accident. There was question marks over, him living. There was question marks over whether he would ever be able to box again. And that man is Errol Spence Jr. He went through that terrible car crash. So yeah, his comeback against Danny Garcia. There was a lot, there was a lot riding on that fight. How good would he look? Would he be damaged goods? Whatever. There was always a question mark, but Errol Spence Jr. Came back and fought Danny Garcia, done very, very well in that fight. He looked very good, did Errol Spence Jr. It wasn't quite to his best, but put it this way, I don't really think he lost many rounds. He might have lost maybe 1 or 2 rounds in that Garcia fight, but he was just like a machine, very busy, completely outboxed and outclassed Danny Garcia. Good performance, dominant performance against Garcia in it, and that was the last we saw of Errol Spence Jr. And now this August 21st, we're going to see him against Pacquiao. And I remember, I think it was when he beat, either when he beat Sean Porter or when he beat Danny. I think it was when he beat Sean Porter. Manny Pacquiao came in the ring and they were talking about, Errol Spence said, yeah, if Manny want this, he can have it, blah blah blah. He was quite keen on the fight, looking to it. So now we get to see it as a reality. And yeah, there's a lot of factors to consider here. You've got Pacquiao, who did look good in his last fight. He fought Keith Thurman. Now, to put this all into perspective, Keith Thurman was actually coming off of, he had an injury, then he had a relatively close fight with Josecito Lopez, who is kind of like a gatekeeper. And then, that was his last performance prior to going in against Manny Pacquiao. So he was on a bit of a shaky run of form. But I guess the thinking going into Thurman Pacquiao was that, look, Keith Thurman is the younger guy. He's still, he's still got something left. Manny Pacquiao is in his 40s. There's no way you're going to get Manny Pacquiao being able to sort of keep up with a Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman should have the edge there just by having a bit of youth over Pacquiao. So that was the thinking going into it, I think, for most. I think even myself, yeah, Manny Pacquiao is one of my favorite fighters, so of course, yeah, I wanted Pacquiao to win, but I think my head was telling me no, Keith Thurman should be able to do this and come through it and then go on to fight some of the other welterweights. But Manny Pacquiao ripped up the script and really gave it to Keith Thurman. He was able to put Thurman down with his quick combinations, and Pacquiao showed that he doesn't quite have the leg speed anymore that he used to have back in the days when I first saw him. He was about 24 years old and he beat up Marco Antonio Barrera, was darting in and out. He was like a buzzsaw, just unleashing combinations non-stop from all these different awkward angles. And right now Manny Pacquiao is not quite that guy anymore, but he still has certain aspects. He still has his punching power. and he still has, I would say, his hand speed. He's still got quick hands, but he hasn't quite got the quick feet. So in his fight with Furman, he was a lot more strategic. He took his time a lot more, but he was still, throwing the combination still pretty quick. And he was still impressive in there against Keith Furman. And I think after that fight, he was very he was quite saying he was up for Errol Spence at some point. I don't know. I think it must have been last year. It was saying, yeah, Errol Spence is slower than Furman and blah blah. So I think Pacquiao and his team definitely fancied the Errol Spence fight, even from last year. I think Freddie Roach was saying, yeah, they were asked about Terence Crawford because obviously Terence Crawford, it makes sense. They were under the same promoter, Bob Arum, at a point in time. So they were asked about that. Roach said honestly that he doesn't like the fight, and Pacquiao's got his senator duties to do, blah blah blah. But when it came to Errol Spence, I think they really fancied the job. They feel that Errol Spence is a little bit slower. They feel Manny's going to be quicker, so he's going to be able to get do his darting in and out, and he's going to stand a much better chance against Errol Spence Jr. than Terence Bud Crawford. And it's one of them where they might have a point there, because Errol Spence Jr. is he's very conventional. He is a southpaw, but I wouldn't exactly call him a slick southpaw. He's sort of a very aggressive southpaw who comes forward, he goes and gets you, and he breaks you down, and he stops he stops a lot of guys. So he's a very aggressive fighter. He's a come forward fighter. He is a southpaw, but he's the way he stands, his stance is quite upright, and I can see where Team Pacquiao probably think they can exploit it. They're probably thinking, well, you know what, he's come off of the car crash. He might not be at his best. So, and his style, I would agree with Team Pacquiao that out of the two styles, Crawford or Spence is the more conventional. He's more straightforward. You got Crawford likes to switch stances. He likes to give you all these different looks. He's a bit more complex in the way he approaches fights. He does different things. He moves. He changes a lot of angles. He's more unpredictable than Spence. Spence, you kind of know what you're going to get with him. And I think that's what, for me at least, that's what Team Pacquiao is banking on. And also, it helps them that, he's had this accident and he's only fought Danny Garcia. And a guy like Danny Garcia, no disrespect to him, but he's kind of tailor-made for a guy like Spence, Garcia is a guy that he likes to kind of counter punch, and he likes to sit back sometimes. He's not, he doesn't come and get you. So he likes to kind of sit back, and a guy like Errol Spence can just be on the jab all night long, and he just outworked Danny Garcia. Danny Garcia is a good fighter, but he's quite straight up and down, and his style just suited Errol Spence down to the ground. And I think that's what Team Pacquiao are probably thinking here when it comes to Spence and Manny. So yeah, ultimately, I think this fight will be quite entertaining because Pacquiao doesn't back down. Pacquiao likes to come forward. He lets his hands go. So I reckon this is going to be a bit of a firefight, and it's quite. I would say you have to kind of favor Errol Spence Jr. I would say I kind of lean towards him, not by a big margin. I think if I was doing percentages, I'd probably say I give this sort of a 60-40 in Errol Spence Jr.'s favor. I just think he's the younger guy. He's more youthful, but it's so you just never know with Pacquiao. I think Pacquiao could sort of become old overnight or whatever. and he could. You never know. He could just pull an amazing performance out of the bag. We just don't know with Pacquiao. But I think the conventional wisdom would say, the common sense would say, no, he's a 42-year-old. Spence is going to get to him. Spence is younger, and you got to go with the younger man and the bigger man in Errol Spence Jr. Bigger, stronger man and younger man. You got to go with Errol Spence Jr. But I think it could be tight. It could be close. The thing is, I think it definitely goes to points. This fight, I think Spence is good, but it's been a little while since he's stopped somebody who's sort of a good, worthwhile opponent. So it's been a while since Spence has had a stoppage on his record. So I think it goes to points, and I think Errol Spence Jr. Wins this one on points. But again, I'm not gonna say, I can't write Manny Pacquiao off. Manny Pacquiao was, he shocked me with Keith Thurman, shocked me with Oscar De La Hoya and certain others. He shocked me with Marco Antonio Barrera back in the days, but I suppose he is 42 now, and time's got to catch up to him at some point. I think this is one of them where time might catch up to him, and he might feel his age for once for once in his career. But anyway, let me know what you think. Do you think Pacquiao wins? Do you think Errol Spence wins? Yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Until next time, this is MKO Pugilism over and out. I'll catch you on the next one.